welcome to Season 6 of How I Made It Through. As I've said before, it is often through pain and suffering that we learn our most profound lessons. It is through courageously exploring the inner landscape of our lives and seeking healing that we transform. Joining me this season is my newest co-host, Bernadette Thompson. Bernadette and I invite you to join us now twice a week as we continue to explore the extraordinary stories of those who've had near-death and spiritually transformative experiences, or are simply wise and old souls sent here to help the collective awaken and heal. Our show reminds us that death of the body does not mean death of the soul, and that indeed we do transition into the wonder of the afterlife and come back again and again and again. Our hope is that each episode will serve as inspiration for your own spiritual discovery. We thank you for joining us in this powerful learning and ask that you subscribe, comment, like, and share. Together, we can spread the growing awareness that we are all infinite souls sent to Earth School at this very unique and miraculous time in human evolution. Today, we are so thrilled to have returning guest and champion Lee Ann Heltzel. So if you are tuning into this and you have not yet listened to or watched part one, because this is part two of a two-part interview, you really must, because they come as a package, so to speak. And here's some context. Number one, today is going to be very unusual for a podcast, because it's going to ask for your participation and engagement, and quite a spiritual experience, a journey. So part one was really talking conceptually and abstract about who Lee Ann is, as well as about her work. But it's one thing to learn about something, and it's quite another to have an immersive experience, which is what today is all about. So there's so much to this that we're just skimming the surfaces. So we really want you to step into something quite different. And I'm going to hand it over to Bernadette to explain a little bit of her experience and why this matters.
Yes. So happy that you are with us, Lee Ann. Lee Ann and I met at the IANS conference, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And it was there that there was this art piece that was being created over these 4 days that we were there. And she and I, there was many times that I would go in and watch this process. And there is it was this incredible spiritual experience that I began to have as this piece it just took life, I guess, is the way I could feel. During that time, Lee Ann told me about the other pieces that she has and how people sit with them and the spiritual experiences, the spiritually transformative experiences that people have had as these pieces of art come to life. So it is a really unusual topic for a podcast that we are asking you to go to YouTube and to look at the artwork and listen. But it is one that I know that you will really, really appreciate and receive something from. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Lee Ann. I hope that sets it up for you, that you, to explain more.
The only thing I will say that I don't think either one of us said enough, if you are listening on Spotify or Apple, please, if you can, go to YouTube so that you can have the visual experience.
Great. Yes. So thankful to be here again, both Kristin and Bernadette. I will say that, yes, encourage people as well to go to YouTube, because there will be an 11-minute meditation that there'll be sound, but the biggest part of it, or the integral part of it, is to have this eye-opened meditative experience. So if you are just listening to it, you'll have sound at the very least. But yeah, thanks so much for having me back. It was so lovely speaking with both of you and meeting you, Bernadette. We just, when you meet people at an event and you're just so drawn to each other, And I was really planted at that piece of art. I wasn't going anywhere. So it was so lovely that you were able to pop in throughout that, and to have the experience with MetaArt, because you're right, it really is a very unique experience. Yet for me, being the artist, and we already kind of talked about the process of how this all came to be, but for me it's so natural. And being an artist, and I think that everybody can kind of understand that art is healing. Art is this integral part that really makes humans different than any other mammal on earth, right? Because we can literally feel through it, and we can explore emotions through it. And both sight with art and sound. And so the piece we're going to talk about today is the frequency of grace. And that's really the uniqueness about it, but the simplicity about it. It's like this double-edged thing, right? Is, wow, this is really unique. I'm going to meditate with my eyes open with a frequency, but the simplicity of it, that yes, this practice is ancient. That there's a Sanskrit practice to meditate with your eyes open that we're all so familiar with, or perhaps aware of, right? Throughout time, throughout many, really all religions have some sort of element of meditating with your eyes open. And we all know the healing capacities of sound. And so this organic process that has unfolded for me over the years, creating these pieces, each frequency comes to me. I don't wake up one day and go, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to paint love or peace or joy. And so oftentimes, which we're going to do now, telling the story of how it all unfolds kind of can bring everybody into the magic of how this happens. So we all kind of settled on the frequency of grace. And the way the story goes is I was kind of alerted. I work with Christ consciousness. So this information came in very, very strongly that I needed to be at the total eclipse of the sun when it came through the United States. I needed to be right on the line of that, longest period of time, right? That sacred line that cut across the United States. I needed to be right on that line because a MetaArt painting was going to come through. And let's see, the total eclipse was in April. This was September, the year before. So I didn't even know there was a total eclipse happening. And it was this, okay, it's on my calendar, kind of, no. And then January rolled around, and it was this, I was in the middle of doing something. And it was this clear directive of put down what you're doing. You need to secure a location now. You need to get that Airbnb. And I had been like popping on and kind of going, where could I drive to? How easily could I get there? Talking with a friend about how can we, kind of maybe we can invite some friends and, make it an experience. So sure enough, we secured a location right on the line of totality. And literally that night, I went back to recheck, and the Airbnbs were doubling and tripling in price. So it was that guidance, right? It's like, right now, do it now. And so, looking on the map and comparing, it was like, wow, we are right on the line in a little small town in Ohio, just a very peaceful space. And so, okay. Now, I didn't know what I was painting. I didn't know what frequency it was to be. I just knew I'm following the direction, got the space. And then it was actually 2 weeks before the total eclipse that I learned afterwards is when the total eclipse window actually opens cosmically. But it was that day that I heard, okay, do the meta insights, get the detailing around this particular piece. And it was in that kind of transmission or conversation that I was instructed that it was to be the frequency of grace. And moving forward into 2024, 2025, moving forward in time, that humanity was going to really require grace, and that this frequency existed, but it really needed to be kind of fortified within us as a humanity. So, and I will be reading that, right before we do the meditation. But as the information comes through, I get this very kind of profound sacred information. And I also get logistics, like, is it a door? Because most of my paintings are on physical doors. Or is it on a canvas? Or perhaps there's 3 of them. As an example, the painting behind me is the frequency to heal. And in the first video, in the background, I had one of the paintings was heal, and it's the door. So I actually was instructed to paint this 9 canvas piece that's separated by lights and that door. So I kind of get my marching orders, right? And I get all the details. And so in this particular painting, I started to really feel, after, receiving this transmission, what grace is and what the importance was of it. And I knew a few things. I knew that it required music. I never know the musician or the singer or whoever is going to create that sacred sound. So, but I knew it was going to require that. And so this was kind of like this call out to, okay, I need that person, right? And I knew the size, and I knew it was just a single door. And so what was interesting with this piece, it was that this other message came through that was very important, that the piece required sacred water from all over the globe. That water was to be a very, very integral piece of this painting. And I thought, wow, sacred water from all over the world. And then I realized, oh my goodness, 8 years ago, when I was on the road, a marketing client of mine in her 20s, young, wonderful young woman, comes over to me at the end of our retreat and said, I need to gift this to you. And she handed me a vial of water. And she was gifted that vial from a shaman that had spent like 20 some years traveling the globe and doing ceremony at every major waterway and collecting a few drops. And so this precious vial of water that this young woman was being called to give to me, and I was like, wow, I don't work with water. Like, are you sure? And you have to have it. So this vial of water had been on my altar for like 7 years. And so it's like, oh, right, I have that. And I've been to the pyramids in Bosnia. I've been to other sacred locations on the earth where, I've brought back water from these places. So I knew that was what was going to be. And then it's just this process of allowing and letting things to happen. And so sure enough, the next day I was actually speaking with my therapist, and she said, I finally got on your website, Lee Ann, and was really looking at the artwork and really meditated with a piece of it as best she could. And she said, there's somebody you need to meet. I need to introduce you to my friend. And sure enough, she was a musician. And she said, Davida Goodman is this dear friend of mine, and she does what you do with painting, but with piano. So she is an accomplished pianist, but she sits down at the piano and just allows frequency to, run through her. So I knew immediately, well, that's the musician. But, we kind of had to go through this like human experience of, emailing each other and then setting up a time to Zoom. And, we got on a 2-hour Zoom call, and, again, that connection I mentioned I had with you, Bernadette, that instant, like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
you're an old friend. And so of course this was something new for her to do, right? And she said, well, how do I go about doing this on my end? And I'm like, you know what? We just let it unfold. And however it comes to be, it comes to be. And so now, the event is coming up pretty closely, and I had a few layers on the painting and packed everything up, drove to this lovely location, and just let the day unfold. And I'm not sure what was more magical, the total eclipse or the painting, because
Mhm.
it was such a profound day. It's really hard for me to express, but I spent some of the morning painting and thinking, oh, that's all this is going to be. I'm just going to paint under this energy of the total eclipse. But no, I um, I sent that picture to Davida. She's like, I don't know, 3,000 miles away. So I just said, here's some, pictures where it is right now. And she immediately sent back a few minutes. She just sat down at the computer, channeled this few minutes of a song, and said, I can't really explain this, Lee Ann, but this sound, this music is going to sound very watery. And I hadn't told her about the water. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, we're definitely in tune with this frequency. So from there, friend about 12 of our closest friends came to have this experience, and they were all, gosh, really, really powerful women, shamans,
Mhm.
sound musicians, just really, incredible women in their own right. And I really just thought, oh, the painting's just going to be here. But no, what I heard was lay the painting flat, and so that it's laying like on a table with all these women surrounding it. And I was called to read the meta insights. And the energy coming through was, I could barely get the words out. It was so emotional. It was so powerful and potent. And I set my computer down, and I was directed to pour that sacred water all over the painting. And I mean, I was using it a lot throughout the painting, but this was no, pour it everywhere. And I just invited these women. I'm like, if you feel called and if you want to, you yourself, engage with this frequency of grace, feel free to. And I kind of turned around and put my computer out of the sun. And when I turned back around, there were 12 women, hands in this water on this painting, having this incredibly profound experience, engaging with grace. It was so potent and emotional, and to have it at that energetic place, right? And so from there, we experienced the eclipse, but it was like something opened up and codes came in and really did something to this painting. It was just remarkable. So I'll kind of stop there and see if you have any like thoughts or questions.
It's yeah. Um, Having been in the presence of the other pictures, and I know the power of it. And I think what struck me as you were explaining this is spirit is so with us all the time, and it is the experience that you just shared with us that highlights that. But it is what comes through for me is I just want people to know that as they engage in any type of, the experience they'll have here today, but to know that spirit is profoundly around them and with us on this journey. And it is us um, letting go and being able to allow it not to happen, but to understand that it is happening.
Yes, I love that. And it is that allowing that goes against the grain of being a responsible adult, right?
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
I think that's why doing anything creative for many people is almost like a, and I did it myself for many years, thinking, oh, when I'm retired and I have lots of free time, I'll start to paint. This thought that it's like an extracurricular fluffy thing that, if you have space enough, you can enjoy. But it's really this incredibly integral part of who we are. And for me, it's it's the gateway into higher consciousness, right? Because the animals, the fish, the wildlife, they don't have this capacity that is unique to humans to use our imagination, to use our creativity. And so to me, that's a natural gateway into these higher states. And something that is kind of taken away from us at a young age, conditioned out of us, right? By 5 or 6, a child knows, oh, Billy's the better artist, or, you know, I can't really play that instrument, or whatever. And so it's bringing that God-given gift we have that we've kind of let, and I know we kind of talked a lot about that in the first session, but really allowing it to be that tool, that impetus to allow.
I love that. The words that come up for me are surrender, faith, trust.
Yes, yes. And because even this entire process for me is that. And um and while it's happening, I don't really think anything of it. It's like, it's almost like, if I worked for somebody and my superior came in my office and said, hey, you need to do A, B, and C tomorrow, I'd be like, okay. It's very much like that. Like, I get my directions, like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can find an Airbnb. I can, whatever it is. And it is this process of certainly haven't gotten the I don't think it'll ever be so down pat with me. It's always that, okay, right. That sounds crazy, but I'm going to do that kind of thing, right? I'm going to allow that to be, and then I'll understand it all later, which is the fun part, obviously. And the other thing I really want to say too is that yeah, this is cool. Leanne's cool. She paints these paintings, but this is something that is in everybody and in their own way, right? In their own talents or capacities or passions.
Right.
This is for everybody. And this was not on my bingo card to be painting paintings, right? But
Yeah.
so it's that allowing, and even if it sounds crazy, like,
Yeah. Well, what I appreciate about that is that, yes, your medium and modality is are the visual arts. But like you mentioned, it could be speaking, it could be business strategy, it could
right.
be poetry, it could be mechanics. It's any number of things where you listen, pay attention, and trust to whatever calls to you, speaks to you when you're tuned into that. I don't hear any fear in you, Leanne. It's like even in the last episode, like,
Yeah.
okay, get in your car, visit your marketing clients. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going. You need to live in this world, but it's also recognizing that we are divinely supported. And if those urges and callings speak to us, that we need to listen and
Yeah.
practice movement and initiation or initiative to follow and trust.
Mhm.
And especially now, right? The world's just getting crazier.
Mhm.
I mean, right? Like everything is in so many ways unraveling. And it's really been this journey for me and continues to be, and I think is a journey for each person, is to really locate all of those profound elements of what life is within ourselves and not look outside of ourselves and do the crazy things and do the things that are a leap. You know, I've always say to my friends, like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna leap again. Like, this is crazy, you know, and it's just it cannot look like it's aligning with logic.
Right.
But when it's done with that faith and with that surrender, then and not maybe listening to everybody else. Like when I first got on the road, I had so many people telling me I couldn't do that. You can't do that, right? It's just like, I mean, I got a personality trait that kind of makes me go, really? Well, I guess I'm going to do it then. But, you know, I think that's a personality thing, but it is that faith and surrender and trust that is really what we need to anchor in more than ever, every single person. The
Mhm.
world's going to unravel, but we each have exactly everything that we need.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, with that, would you like to have the meditation experience with Grace? So
Mhm.
a few things that the video actually shows without me speaking it. It's just words. So I will read it again when the video is happening. But just to say to the audience when they're viewing this on YouTube, to please maybe pause it and put this on the biggest screen that you can. So if you can get YouTube on your television, if you could get it on your desktop computer, because you know, ideally with MetaArt, we're looking at a door. So it's going to be gradually going down the door. Ideally, obviously, you're sitting in front of the door itself or a reproduction, but we're going to be doing this online. So as big as possible and in a quiet space, if you can put headphones on, just to kind of, you know, give yourself that privacy from the rest of the world, that's even better. So great time to pause and prepare for that. And then the instructions, which again, I will repeat, the goal is when you're looking at the art is to pick one spot. And you can see, I mean, this is in the painting we're going to use, but they're all similar in the fact that there's like a lot of circles, there's a lot of little dots, or maybe there's like a little tiny dot of magenta that your eye's really drawn to. You just look at that one spot, stay focused on that one spot, and relax your gaze. And I liken it to if you've seen the paintings or the pieces of artwork that kind of just looks like a pattern, but then if you relax your gaze, it's like, oh, there's a horse,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So it's that type of relaxing your gaze where you're just really allowing it to be. And from there, what most people say with these paintings is they work really well for a person maybe that can't focus on meditating. But what happens with the paintings is the visual and the sound are quite entertaining to the brain, right? So it's great for people that have a hard time meditating. But if your mind does start to wander, then you can repeat grace because that is the frequency we're going to be working with. You may see animals, you may see deceased loved ones, you may see shapes turning into different patterns that aren't there or different colors that aren't there. Or especially if you're actually with the piece, the edge of the art and the wall become blurred. And all of these things, many times people have that there's no color. It just goes completely white. All of those things are normal. What that means is the frequency of grace is actually engaging with your pineal gland, because that's what these paintings do. They bypass the intellect. So we're not thinking about anything. And it's actually going from the retina to the hypothalamus directly to the pineal gland. So when things start to move, because if I don't kind of say that first, people will say to me, oh my gosh, I just saw a lion, or, or my pet that died 2 years ago. And it can be a little startling, but this is a beautiful thing. Whatever moves and spins and morphs is so beautiful and perfect. And it just means that frequency is engaging with you. And it could be your emotional state, your physical state, it could be any of your energy bodies. So let's have the experience. So if you want to bring the video up, we won't start it yet. We just have it ready to go. And the first thing I'll ask everyone to do is just close your eyes and to get really, really comfortable. And first, I'm going to read to you the meta insights, and then I'll ask you to open your eyes, and then we'll begin the meditative video. So let's take a deep breath in together and out. Really settling into your seat and just really giving yourself these next few minutes. It's not a long video at all. It's not a long meditation. So just allowing yourself the grace to experience this frequency. We'll take another deep breath in and release. This is the time for pure sight of one's pure nature, the one existing outside of duality, for she wants to be expressed as well. What is occurring is in the increase of more souls incarnating, the desire, the sight, the knowledge that we control the ship, and we choose love as the astrolabe to guide us home to the world we desire, rather than the one we are victims to. And you are your own astrolabe, and the earth is her own. Once you see it and know it, you become the Godhead, aligning with the Godhead of creation. This is the true nature of everything, not just humans. And that is why at this time it is a race, not of control or domination, but one of love and the very grace you have only to experience the tip of. Grace is the only reason humans remain here, and it is grace that will light your path. For this can happen easily or dramatically, this rebalancing and the natural progression to level up and evolve to the next stage. It can happen, quite honestly, with humanity or without. Grace does not secure an end result one way or the other. Instead, it offers inner sight supported by each person's fully realized divine self, a path home to the tomorrow where humanity inherits a new earth governed by a new law, a true divinity and governorship based in balance and wholeness and love. The result of that is peace. So don't pray for peace, for that is the end result. Pray instead for your own divine self to come into full view, both revealed to you where it meets the ego and allows it to rest, and for the betterment of the entire organism. You see, true grace is the movement, the force that creates evolution as it comes from the spirit of all sentient beings. It is in the air around prayer, intentions, and the very most loving thoughts, actions, and deeds alike. It is what moves the evolutionary wheel forward. Enlightenment and the return to divine balance. So it is in fact a sort of fuel. Grace is an evolutionary fuel, a sacred evolutionary fuel. You can see why it is so important to grace all sentient beings at this time, yes? In this, your 11th hour of chaos that is churning. As the churning continues and increases, it is this divine fuel that is needed to be invoked in new areas of the human psyche and human choices. And with that, we will start the meditation. I'll remind you as the meditation is progressing to just pick one spot and relax your gaze. Yeah, so we can just take a nice cleansing breath in and come back into the space. So, yes, that was or is the frequency of grace. And I don't want to forget um, Davida. So, the meditations are always 11 minutes. Davida has a whole album because throughout the painting of this, she was, creating and expressing the frequency. So she actually offers a whole album. So if you want even more of the sound, but every piece comes with that transmission I read, as well as the sound component. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, I would love to hear what each of you experienced. If you can put some words together.
Do you want to go first, Kristin? Um, Spirit was with me the whole time, and it uh, it was the beautiful expression of um, heaven and earth together, like how, and uh, it was. I just can't even. There's so much. Like if you and I were sitting down together, I could probably talk for an hour, but to try and put it out, and that's the best. All I can say is that colors, everything kept just changing. And sometimes I would close my eyes because I needed to, and then when I would open them again, it was they were having me look at something else, like something
Yeah.
else
Mhm.
had had come up. But I mean, I literally saw souls coming down to earth.
Mhm.
So that's just my, yeah. How about
It
you?
it is it's hard to put words together because it is happening outside of the intellect, right? It's more of a, oh gosh, I have complex, not even emotions, just this energy, right? So it is hard to, usually I kind of don't want to ask afterwards, like, how
Yeah.
was it? Because it's hard to kind of organize it.
I will say that it just, that it changed, the colors were changing, things were changing while, and I know it wasn't, we're looking at, but it was changing.
Right.
So that was probably the biggest. So Kristin, how about you?
Yeah. It felt really, multidimensional. There was movement, there were undulations, there were waves, colors would recede and then come forward and then deepen, darken, and then it felt like in the periphery, it felt like there were words. I don't know what they were, and I chose
Oh,
not to look, but it felt like there were words. And then it felt like a rolling tunnel, and then I started to see my dear pets who have passed on, like, there's just this little montage. It was like, "Oh, there's the parakeets, there's the 2
oh,
dogs," like, and this may be where my intellect came in, but it felt like they were saying, "We're still here, we're watching." Just their sweet little faces were just like they'd come forward, and then I would go, "Oh, there was Zoe." And then, I'm looking at Zoe and I'm like, "And Phoebe." Like,
right.
yeah. It just felt like I wasn't looking at the same painting from moment to moment. It was just so dynamically changing.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, and the beauty is the next time you would sit with it, you would have a completely different experience.
Mhm,
I believe that. I
mhm.
believe that. Part
Yeah.
of it was hard, and this is, I think I might have scratched my eye yesterday, so my eyes were burning a little bit, so I
Yeah.
was just playing a lot with opening and closing and opening and closing. So I wanna do this a lot, and I'm so glad that this is recorded so that I can return to it over and over again, because
Mhm.
I imagine I'm gonna have, as everyone will have, to your point, dynamically diverse experiences from
Right.
session to session.
Exactly, exactly. And I love that you saw your pets. I love that you saw souls coming in because it really does it doesn't represent it. It shows us that
Mhm.
we're all connected and we're all a part of everything, right?
Yeah.
And to have those type of moments, even that's an 11-minute meditation. So you know, it what I hear often from people is if they have the painting like in their home or you know in a certain room, their meditation room, bedroom, whatever, that after a while you don't even have to meditate with it. You just see it out of your peripheral and you go right into that kind of liminal space
Right.
where you're not you can't really put words around it, right? But you know that you're out of the constructs of
Mhm.
this space and to be able to engage with a specific frequency, you know, to don't want to really revisit, you know, what I read at the beginning, but you know, it happens with every single one of these that I create that I realize, oh, my thought of the word grace is so like
Mhm.
topical. Like, right, that there's this really deep meaning and that it is so incredibly needed right now. And so that's another thing that I love about these paintings is there are frequencies, there are energies that
Mhm.
are everywhere and exist within us, exist within our reality, exist cosmically, I believe. And so we're just choosing to strengthen them, to engage with them, to acknowledge them and usher in or allow in their gifts and how they can support humanity even more deeply. And there was a lot that I kind of take everything that came through and I whittle it down to what I read. But, you know, it really was explaining to me very much that uh, this is an 11th hour. Not that, oh my gosh, you know, the
Sure.
world is going to end or anything like that, but it is where we are. And, you know, I heard somebody speak to it from the perspective of perhaps collectively we're all entering a dark night of the soul in order for that shift, that leap of evolution to happen. And so that's what I love about these paintings is that they support that for each individual however they need it. And you know, children just kind of gravitate to the paintings. They don't really need a okay, now look at one spot. You know, they don't need any of that
Yeah.
instruction, right?
Yeah.
They just and
Yeah.
after like I said, after it's integrated into your, you know, energy of your room, it's just it becomes palatable in the room, right?
Mhm.
That the
Yeah.
grace is here.
The grace is here. You know, it's speaking to me as I listen to you and having had that experience. It's teaching us how to perceive, right? Because there are so many to use. I think the word you use is the construct. Like if we're only looking through this keyhole and we think that is the world, the
Yeah.
experience of whatever is happening with the hypothalamus and the pineal gland and sort of softening the
Mhm.
prefrontal cortex, whatever the neurological elements are at play, it's going, no, 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 no,
Right.
no, no, open, open,
Yeah.
open, open. And not just open from here, but
Yeah.
open from the heart space too.
That's so beautifully said. And to do that even for a few minutes a day, right? It's just so important for us to do and to first just to acknowledge that okay, there is something more
Mhm.
to open up to
Mhm.
and this I've heard, you know, many people that own the paintings say like it becomes this very intimate relationship
Mhm.
where, you know, this deepens and deepens over time. And so
Mhm.
many people will say to me, and I love this, they'll say, you know, I had this thing kind of happen today and I'm going to take it to the painting.
Mm.
Mm,
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
right.
use it, because again, the painting is a tool. It is that opening. I love that so many of them are directed to be on doors, because it represents that threshold,
That
right?
threshold. And you said liminal spaces, and liminal
Right.
spaces, you are between spaces, which is perfect for the metaphor of a door. What's also coming up for me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is so many people, as we all know, say, I can't meditate. I don't meditate. I can't meditate. And I think there's a lot of people with different neurodiversity. And I
Right.
feel like this is a lovely, using the metaphor of the door, entry point to say, spend 5 minutes.
Mhm,
And because of the combination of the music and the visual, there can be a level of engagement that
mhm.
can help quiet other activity. And I just wonder if you've explored that or have any sense of how this connects with people with neurodiversity.
Yeah, well, I do have a piece specifically for those on the spectrum, and that is fascinating to me, and I really think that it really calls for some research,
Yeah,
because it does. I use the words, it entertains the brain.
that's
You're
what I
looking at
mean.
something, right?
Yes,
There's this entertaining or experience that's happening that then allows the frequency, because I always say these are frequencies ma- masquerading as a painting, right?
Mhm,
This is
mhm,
grace. The sound, it is grace. And so it being a painting, or it being, a beautiful piece of piano music, is kind of the logistical human experience, right? But what's really happening is happening so much beyond that. And where those two things meet is that magic spot, is that, oh yeah, I'm looking at a beautiful painting and listening to song, but then it's like, where am I really, knowing that you're in this liminal space?
yeah,
And so this becomes just a very easy tool to because the more we can go into those liminal spaces, the more we can experience that freedom, the more can come in, right? If you The
mhm.
analogy of the door, if you allow that threshold to be there, acknowledge that that threshold's there, then more and more and more, it's, oh right, there's all this other beautiful pieces of life.
I also think it is, and you said it, it is, it can be an intimate conversation with spirit. As you said, people taking that question, I'm going to take that question to the painting.
Right.
Spirit always, I mean, my um, guide immediately came in as this opened up. And spirit is always looking for ways to communicate with us.
Yeah.
And people have difficulty finding that way. And I feel like this for some people could be an amazing way for that conversation, true conversation with spirit that we're all able to do and we can all learn to do. It's finding that place that works for us. And I think that
Yeah.
that this is a way for direct communication.
mm,
And I do commission paintings of people's higher selves, right? So it can be that specific. I've done a couple that is getting married, and they
mm.
created their own painting together, that they really went into that profound liminal space of their love.
Oh, wow.
There's so many ways in which to kind of bring this into our world.
Yeah, to be in
Mhm.
relationship to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
this was just
I
amazing.
know.
You have shared such a beautiful, generous gift with us, and I just, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I
Yeah.
will get you the link to directly to Davida's website.
Mm.
That soundtrack is obviously on mine with the painting, but she also, like I said, has a whole album. So
Mhm.
get you that information, and thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
How I Made It Through is produced and distributed by EIQ Media, LLC. Elevate your emotional IQ with podcasts and content focused on overcoming adversity, leadership, mental health, entrepreneurship, spiritually transformative experiences, and more.